I first met Lyra on the observation deck of the station orbiting the gas giant Epsilon 9. The deck overlooked the planet's swirling storms, its amber clouds twisting like molten glass, and the lights of the city below shimmered faintly, suspended in perpetual twilight. She was leaning against the railing, her frame small but tense, her eyes fixed on the storm beyond. I remember thinking she didn't belong there, not among the scientists, the engineers, and the explorers, but in some other, more private world. I approached cautiously. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I asked. My voice sounded strange even to me, carrying an unfamiliar weight, like I had been speaking underwater. She didn't turn. "Depends on what you call beautiful," she murmured. Her tone was dry, almost brittle. Yet, beneath it, I sensed a tremor, as if her voice itself feared drawing attention. "I call it breathtaking," I said. "But maybe you're used to seeing wonders." Her laugh was short, humorless. "I've seen wonders, yes. Mostly the kind that break you." She finally looked at me then. One side of her face was hidden behind a sleek mask, the kind that helped maintain her vitals after the accident. A shimmering scar ran beneath her left eye, fading into her jawline. "Some breaks can't be fixed." I blinked, unsure whether to apologize or to pretend I hadn't noticed. But she didn't give me the choice. "I'm Lyra," she said, turning slightly so her exposed eye met mine. "And you are?" "Jonas," I replied. "I'm here for the research rotation. Something tells me we'll be working together." Her gaze shifted to the storm again. "Maybe. Or maybe not. Some people can't handle what's broken." I frowned. "Broken isn't always a death sentence." She looked at me sharply then, and I realized that wasn't what she feared. It was being unloved, being avoided. "You think anyone could love this?" she asked, gesturing at herself with emotion so slight it was almost imperceptible. "Do you know what it's like to be a walking warning sign? To make people recoil because they see your injury before they see you?" I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to, but the words stumbled in my throat. "Maybe love isn't about seeing someone as perfect," I finally said. "Maybe it's about seeing someone as whole, even with the cracks." She turned away then, staring at the planet again. I could hear the tension in her body, the way she braced herself, as if expecting a sudden strike from the wind. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "You don't know what it's like to wake up every day knowing you're undesirable." Our first week together was awkward. Lyra avoided the labs, avoided the crew, avoided me whenever she could. But fate, or perhaps stubborn curiosity, kept throwing us together. She was a xenobiologist, assigned to catalog the newly discovered flora and fauna of Epsilon 9's upper atmosphere. I was an engineer, there to maintain the station's gravity containment fields and atmospheric scanners. One evening, as I recalibrated sensors on the observation deck, I heard a soft hissing, her voice filtered through the mask. "Jonas," she said, almost too quietly to hear. "Do you think the storms ever end?" I didn't move. "Depends on the storm." She stepped closer, her presence hesitant. "I mean the other kind, the ones inside, the ones that remind you that no one can ever love you." Her words hit me harder than the gales outside. I turned to face her. "Lyra, if that's true, then how do you explain the fact that you're standing here, talking to me? You're alive, aren't you? That means someone somewhere has cared enough to keep you alive, even if it's just yourself." She let out a bitter laugh. "I don't know if surviving counts as living, Jonas." For the first time, I saw her flinch, as if the walls she had built around herself were cracking. I stepped closer, careful not to invade her space, but close enough to show her I wasn't going anywhere. "I don't think you have to earn love by being perfect," I said. "You just have to be you, even the parts you think are broken." She looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I thought she might retreat. But she didn't. She simply nodded and turned back to the storm. And I realized that, for the first time, she had allowed herself to be seen. Days passed, and the storm outside mirrored the one inside her. She started showing up in the labs, not just to work, but to talk, hesitant at first, about her research, then about the things that haunted her. She told me about the accident that left her injured, a crash while collecting samples from a rare plant that emitted electromagnetic pulses. She had been trapped for hours, the station's rescue team delayed by the storm. When she emerged, she was altered, scarred, dependent on the life support mask to stabilize her heart. I thought I'd never be normal again, she confessed one night, the lights of Epsilon 9 casting strange orange reflections across her face. And after that, I just assumed no one could love me. I didn't flinch. I reached out, but not to touch her. Just a gesture of solidarity. Lyra, you're not broken. You're human. And sometimes, being human means being vulnerable. That doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you real. She laughed softly, a sound that carried both skepticism and relief. Real, huh? Not exactly a selling point in the dating market. You're selling yourself short, I said. Besides, I don't care about the market. I care about you. Her eyes widened, and I thought I saw something like hope flicker. But she quickly masked it with humor. You engineers are always so confident. That must be part of your charm. Maybe, I said. Or maybe we're just used to fixing things. I'd like to try fixing this one thing, though, helping you see that you're unlovable. It wasn't easy. Lyra's trust had been eroded over years of isolation and rejection. Every gesture of kindness I offered was met with suspicion. But slowly, like sunlight piercing a storm cloud, the walls began to crumble. We worked late nights, calibrating sensors together, monitoring atmospheric phenomena, sharing stories of our lives before the station. She told me about her family, her dreams of discovering something new in the cosmos, and the guilt that had shadowed her every step since the accident. I told her about my childhood on a mining colony, the loneliness of growing up among machines, and the longing for a connection that made me human. One evening, the storm outside raged harder than usual, lightning tearing through the amber clouds. We were on the observation deck, monitoring fluctuations in the planet's magnetic field. I glanced at her and saw the mask had slipped slightly, revealing more of her face. The scar was stark, but it no longer seemed like a warning. It was a testament to survival. I never thought I'd see a storm like this, she said quietly, almost to herself. Sometimes, storms are necessary, I replied. They clear the air. They show what's strong enough to endure. She met my gaze, and I saw the first unguarded smile. And what about me? Am I strong enough? You already are, I said. You just have to let yourself be loved. For a long moment, she didn't respond. Then, slowly, she reached out, placing her gloved hand over mine. The touch was tentative but electric. The storm outside seemed to echo the surge inside me, the realization that connection, once thought impossible, was now tangible. The turning point came a week later. A shuttle from the main colony arrived with supplies and personnel, and one of the engineers fell gravely ill due to an unknown atmospheric pathogen. Lyra was the closest specialist, and despite her own injuries and dependence on the mask, she volunteered to help. For hours, she worked tirelessly, moving between the sick crew member and the station's medical interface, recalibrating life support modules, administering treatments, and monitoring vitals. I watched her, awestruck. Here was someone who had believed herself unlovable, risking everything for others. When the shift ended, she sank to the deck, exhausted. I knelt beside her. You saved him, I said softly. I was just doing my job, she whispered. You were doing more than that, I said. You proved that being injured doesn't make you less. It makes you brave. And brave is incredibly lovable. Her mask slipped further, and for the first time, I saw her without the barriers that had defined her for so long. She looked at me, unflinching, and I reached out again, taking her hand. Lyra, I've seen the person behind the mask, and I can tell you, you are not alone. Not anymore. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled, a full, radiant smile that seemed to challenge the storms themselves. Jonas, she whispered. Yes, I think I'm ready to believe. Weeks passed, and the bond we forged on that observation deck grew stronger. Lyra no longer avoided the crew, the labs, or me. She laughed, sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, but always freely. Her research flourished, uncovering new species of floating flora that glowed with bioluminescent pulses, adding color to the perpetual twilight of Epsilon 9. And in the quiet moments, we stood together on the observation deck, watching storms rage and recede, sharing warmth and understanding that had once seemed impossible. One evening, as the planet below shimmered like molten amber, she turned to me, her mask resting on the railing beside her. Jonas, she said, voice steady. I used to think no one could love me, that my scars, my injuries, made me unworthy. I shook my head. You were never unworthy. You were just afraid to let anyone in. She smiled, brushing a hand across the faint scar beneath her eye. I think I understand now. Love isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to let someone see the truth, even the painful parts. And you're the bravest person I know, I said. You've faced storms inside and out, and you came through. She leaned into me, her hand finding mine, and for the first time, I felt the fragile weight of her fear lift. Thank you for believing, she whispered. No, I said. Thank you for letting me. As the storms of Epsilon 9 continued to swirl below us, I realized that some storms, inside or out, were meant to be weathered together. And in that shared endurance, love could bloom, even in the most unexpected places. Lyra, once convinced that no one could love her because of her injuries, had discovered the truth. Scars do not diminish the heart. They make it stronger. And I, standing beside her, knew that I would never let her forget it. As the storms of Epsilon 9 raged below us, Lyra rested her hand in mine, her mask set aside, her scar no longer a barrier, but a testament to survival. The swirling amber clouds reflected in her eyes, but this time, they weren't filled with fear or doubt. They were filled with something brighter, hope. I used to think no one could love me, she whispered, her voice trembling yet certain. That my injuries, my scars, made me unworthy. I shook my head, tightening my hold on her hand. You were never unworthy. You were just afraid to let someone in. And now you've let me. A soft, genuine smile spread across her face, one that reached her eyes and touched the warmth of her entire being. I think I understand now, she said. Love isn't about perfection. It's about courage, about showing someone who you really are. And you've shown me, I said softly. Every day, through storms, through fear, through everything, you've shown me your heart. And I wouldn't trade a single scar for anything in the universe. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against mine. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me, for believing in me. No, I said. Thank you for letting me. Below us, the storms began to settle, the amber clouds parting to reveal the faint glimmer of Epsilon 9's twin moons. In that quiet, suspended moment, we both understood something simple and profound. Love had found its way into the spaces we thought were too broken, too guarded, too lost. And now, nothing, not the scars, not the fear, not the storms, could ever take it away. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt whole. And for the first time, I understood what it meant to be chosen, not in spite of our imperfections, but because of them. As the winds faded and the planet below shimmered peacefully, she whispered one last thing. I believe it now. I can be loved, and I will love. And in that moment, under the quiet light of the alien moons, our hearts finally collided, not perfectly, but beautifully, as two souls who had survived their storms and found each other.